What's up guys, Anthony here with Visual Anthony. And today we're going to be looking at a lighting setup that I'm going to be using on a short film that I recently wrote. The scene takes place in a living room at night. It's not technically nighttime here right now, but we are getting kind of that bluish tone coming in from this big window right here. So for this particular test, it'll work perfectly. I wanted the lighting in the scene to be soft and as natural as possible. So what I've decided to use is the COVE light. Made famous by Roger Deakins. So let's hop on over to the main camera and get into the breakdown of just how I set this up and what it looks like before and after. Let's get into it. Okay, so here we have a nice frame from the living room scene. It's a pretty simple layout. We have a couch, a little girl as our primary subject. We also have some nice visual elements in the shot, such as the aquarium with our beloved turtle Cedric, as well as some house plants scattered about, compliments of my plant-loving wife. As I stated previously, the goal of the lighting in this particular scene was to look as natural as possible. And what better way to achieve this goal than with the famous COVE light. I wanted it to be soft and flattering, but also effective enough to adequately light multiple subjects as we see here. The daughter and I watching some invisible TV. So now let's cut all of the lights and go through the steps I took to achieve this final look. In this shot, I'm using Cedric's basking light as a nice practical. And after reviewing the footage, I'm considering removing that light altogether and bringing in a proper lamp. But I haven't really made up my mind on that yet. I'm also taking advantage of the large front window in the room just out of frame camera right. I shot these tests later on in the evening, so we had a nice blue tone coming in from outside. However, when we actually move into production, I will be reinforcing this moonlight effect with an IntelliTech light cloth. Unfortunately, it had just started raining, so I didn't want to risk ruining the duvetine that I would need to block out that outside light or the light itself. So for the sake of this test, let's just use our imaginations. Here's a diagram to give you a general understanding of the layout we're working with. Let's introduce the COVE and the first light. The material I used for the COVE is a sheet of unbleached muslin that I picked up from our local Hobby Lobby. I think it was anywhere from $30 to $40, and it was a pretty large sheet. For the first source, I'm using an Aperture HR672 LED panel. This particular panel is the S variant. It has a 25-degree beam angle, so it gives us more of a spotlight effect. With this light, I wanted to start the gradual foundation of lighting on the subject's face, as well as bring up the presence of the background. I angled the light slightly to bounce off more towards the right side of the muslin, giving some light to the plant's camera left, and also adding some character to the background. These are daylight balance panels, so we're using the included CTO filters that came with the lights. Using this tungsten temperature also contrasted very well against the blue tone coming in from the window. Now let's have a look at the lighting diagram and introduce our second light. The second light source, or the light in the middle, is the Aperture 300D Mark I. I put the bigger and brighter light in the middle because I wanted this source to act as the main key light in the COVE. As you can see, it starts wrapping the face very nicely and adds a little more contrast against the moonlight. It also adds a little more texture to the greenery behind the subject. I believe for this test, the 300D was sitting around the 50 to 60% intensity range. I am thinking I may turn the brightness up a bit when it actually comes time to shoot. So now let's go back to the diagram and let's bring in our third and final light. The third light in the COVE is another Aperture HR672 panel. This panel, however, is the W variant. This panel gives us a wider beam angle at around 75 degrees. I chose the wider beam for this part of the cove for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted to finish the wrap of the subject's face with a soft, nice fall off into the blue tone. I also wanted to bring up the overall ambience in the room, and I think it performed those tasks quite nicely. I experimented with a few angles and locations of this particular light before settling on its current angle. In the end, I ended up pointing it ever so slightly towards the 300D. In doing this, it added a little more power to the main key light while softening the fall off on the subject's face. Doing this allowed us to keep the hint of shadow on the right side of the face, creating that naturalistic, moody vibe that I originally wanted to capture. So now let's have a look at the final diagram of the setup and talk conclusions. All in all, I'm extremely pleased with how the shot turned out. This was actually my first time experimenting with the COVE lighting technique, and I definitely look forward to using it on more projects in the future. A couple of things that I would probably try on the next go around would be to just brighten up each of the lights respectively, and possibly even just bringing the COVE a little closer to the subject. In these tests, I was a tad underexposed on the camera meter. Typically when I shoot vlog on the GH5S, I like to expose one stop to the right and then grade and color the footage for the mood that's required for that particular project. I wanted to try something different here, and I think it achieved its goal in the end. So that about wraps it up for this video, guys. I appreciate it. I thank you guys so much for watching if you hung around to the end. If you were able to get something from this video, then let us know in the comments. And if you like this video, you like this type of content, be sure to subscribe, maybe even hit that bell so that you're notified anytime we post new content. If you liked the video, give us a thumbs up. If you didn't like the video, maybe just don't give us a thumbs down. So until next time, guys, thank you, be blessed, and go create something.